Visit Avery.com, Avary, for the most up-to-date news and information on Team Avery.
Avery, 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 Avery.
The Video Archives podcast with Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avery is back for season 2. Head on over to patreon.com/videoarchives to get ad-free exclusive content and bonus episodes. This is The Gala Show. I'm your reporter on the beat, Gala Avery. On season 2 of The Gala Show, I'm inviting back prior guests who told me that my 30-minute time limit was just not enough for them. For the month of January, he's a photographer, a cultural party anthropologist of Los Angeles, and most importantly, a Pisces. Last time he was on the show, he sat down and chatted with me all about discovery. This time, he's got a totally new topic and we are ready to bite into it. Returning to the mic is someone who has helped me make all sorts of discoveries when it comes to my favorite hobby of film photography, Toastycakes. Hey, Steven.
This is the sound of my voice.
So before we bring up the topic for today, I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
What is your favorite film stock to shoot with and why?
Wow, the heavy-hitting questions.
Yeah, if you could have anything, like any film stock.
I mean, I am a Pisces. Which means I'm a variety of spice of life.
This is a drinking game. Whenever I'm talking, it's like if he mentions that he's a Pisces, take a shot.
This is definitely a bit that I do where I'm like,
I love it.
Did you know? As a Pisces, I love all sorts of film stocks, but I am a varieties of spice of life kind of person. If we're talking about the cinema world, I was going to bring you some Kodak XX, which is the film that was used for Oppenheimer, but also used for Schindler's List. I have a 400-foot roll in my freezer right now.
Wow.
I have to break you off a couple of hand-canned rolls. But I, for black and white, almost exclusively shoot Ilford HP5 because I really like the highlights and I push at a stop. So basically, I throw in a little extra sparkle to the highlights. It blows them. So with that flash fill that I try to get you to use so frequently,
which I will one day use,
it really has a great tone. And kind of my style. I'm frequently doing nightlife things, or I'm at kind of like glamorous or interesting or fashionable parties. And so I love the way that the tone is. I recently shot some Delta 3200, and that is a very interesting film. And mine was 20 years expired, so it was extra interesting because I had to push it so far and overexpose it. But like that, for color, I'm kind of like into real stocks. I hate meme stocks. We talked about this.
We did talk about this because I had some, I think it's called Yotica. I had some Yotica.
Yeah, why would you burn
photos.
an Instagram filter into your film? Like, I just don't get it. Like, if you want to fuck up your film, take it and throw it in some chlorine, throw it in the ocean, like spritz something on it, pull like a Stan Brakhage or a Bruce Conner. But the idea of buying a can of film that like had a rainbow pre-exposed to it is so gnarly to me. But also I hate Portra. Like, I'm that guy.
Oh.
And I know you love Portra.
I love Portra, but I hate Cinestill.
I refuse to shoot Cinestill. I don't fuck with that.
I'm sorry, tangent. I matched the guy on Bumble and he shot film. And so I was talking with him. I'm like, I hate Cinestill. It's the worst. It's terrible. And he was like, I work at Cinestill. And I was like,
peace out, bro.
Yeah, I was like, it's still the worst. Like, just so you know. And then he just like never talked to me again. And I was like, we're not compatible. You like Cinestill.
No, that's like saying he works at the Zyklon B factory.
For me, it is.
Honestly, like, and I have friends who use Cinestill, but you're never going to catch that in my fucking camera.
No.
Or Portrait, just because to me, it's like the 5D. It's like the Canon 5D of film. Like, if you're going to use it, go get a digital camera. So I'm kind of into more muted and grainier films because I hated them so much when I was a kid. I loved really really saturated, really bright, colorful things. So in the turn of the century, that was like Ellen von Unworth and David LaChapelle, who were cross-processing their film, but always liked a Herberts and always liked like that era, David Sims, whatever, Solveig Sundsbo. And so now I do love the subtle muted tone. So I just gave you a roll of Fuji Press 800 that's been expired since 1998. And the softness that comes out kind of like highlights why one would shoot film over digital. It's all the character that I love that you cannot get in a digital camera or on an iPhone. One of my last favorite films that was discontinued was Agfa Vista 400, because it wasn't like a meme stock, it wasn't a gimmick, it wasn't weird like hypercolor, but it had a lot more character to it than Portra, so was a big fan of that. And I will say my favorite film of all time that's been discontinued for I think 20 years now is Agfa Ultra 50. So it's a 50 speed like hypercolor, really rad film for shooting landscapes or for shooting like any sort of weirdness.
Wow. I wish that was not discontinued.
Me too.
Now, as always, my guest gets to bring their topic to the mic. Like last time, Stephen opted to surprise me with his topic, and I think surprise himself as well. So, Stephen, let me in on it. What are we talking about?
I'm going to break the fourth wall because whatever's in the show is in the show. And our last show was recorded like 3 minutes ago. So
yeah, it was. We were having too much fun talking, and so we're like, well, let's just do another one.
We got to keep it going. I love this. We're doing the encore. And yet it's still just playing the hits. I didn't have a topic before, and I still don't. And so I was asking if you want to surprise me with one. But to continue with our previous episode of Discovery, I talked about organic discovery and finding people in the world who would introduce you to new things outside of your scope and outside of your comfort zone. And I've always been obsessed with that. There's a different kind of discovery that I think that we don't have in 2023, which is the organic discovery of being in a place and hearing a song, or being in a place and seeing a show just because it came on. And so my topic today is going to be in defense of the CRT TV.
Oh my God. Do you see my little CRT down there?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, that is I don't have, notice how I don't have like an actual TV in my house?
I love analog video, and I'm obsessed with CRT TVs. And you and I have talked before. I have like a Plex media server because I'm that nerd, and I have thousands of movies on it. But I actually have a system that runs my very large media server through a breakout box into an analog TV. So if I'm going to watch like a 1990s skate film, or if I'm going to watch a 80s VHS rip, I'm going to watch it the way God intended, on a 13-inch piece of shit Sony or an Emerson TV on channel 3 with those very soft and beautiful scan lines.
But before we get into the topic, it's time for a commercial break. Back by popular demand, the Video Archives merch store is up and running. Get your favorite t-shirts, hats, notebooks, stickers, and more at videoarchivesmerch.com. You know me. I write all my notes in the Notes on Cinema notebook, the Gala edition, of course. Check out videoarchivesmerch.com to get yours today. Hey, thanks so much for being a loyal listener. If you want to keep up with me off mic, make sure to follow me on Instagram at Gala Avery. And we're back. Hallelujah. We're going to be talking about In Defense of the CRT. 30 minutes on the clock. Time starts now.
So I guess actually I have no defense for the CRT. They kind of suck. They're big and they're heavy.
That was a fake way to start the conversation.
I know, but no, we're swimming along as a Pisces.
I'm a Pisces. I'm a Sagittarius.
I don't know what the fuck that means.
That means I'm born in December.
I also don't know what it means to be a Pisces, but every person I meet, and by every person I mean every girl I meet, knows within like 5 minutes that I am one. So
it's really funny because I know a lot of guys that are like, I won't tell girls my star sign because they're gonna like plug it into a calculator and like start like doing all this like
plug
mumbo
it into
jumbo.
A calculator? What fucking dudes are these? Are you dating Oppenheimer? Yeah, no, every girl I know
All the
walks around with
nerds.
co-star though, and they definitely have a lot of opinions. Like, it's a meme where it's like you meet a girl and like 3 minutes before anything exciting happens, they're like, "And what time were you born?" And like, you have to call your mom and start asking her, and
That's
a
how
real
that's how
problem
she
for me.
knows that it's real.
Yeah, that's how your mom knows that you're with a fucking psychopath.
That's exactly why I never ask any guy that question. If I'm asking that question, I don't know what I'm on.
And that's why I don't have a mom.
Oh, Steven.
So back to the CRT. R.I.P. Love you, mom.
Yeah,
I,
Steven's Mama Toastycakes.
I grew up in a time before the internet. I'm not entirely, but I began my time before the internet, and I didn't even have cable TV because I was actually raised very, very poor. So if I ever went over to a friend's house or was in a public space or somewhere that wasn't my own home, I was so enamored with the discovery of flipping through channels. There was always this TV guide channel, like a channel 20, that would scroll endlessly and show you what was on all of the basic cables or on the like Cinemaxes. But there are so many interesting movies that I discovered just because I was at the right place at the right time, which was I'm an insomniac, and I was when I was a kid, and everyone else at some friend's house during a sleepover went to bed, and I was up at 2 a.m. when 9.5 Weeks came on, for instance. Or I guess another funny one is a couple of days ago we were talking about the Malibu chili cook-off, and
Yes.
because let's make it incredibly local and very, very timely. And I was talking about parking lot carnivals. And one of the movies that just is so burned into my memory and so imprinted on me was a film called Plain Clothes. You've never heard of it?
No.
Nobody who's listening to this has ever heard of this film. It came out in 1988. And so whenever I was watching on basic cable, was several years after, it was Martha Coolidge's like 7th movie after Valley Girl and after the movies we know her from. And it's like Arliss Howard, and it's not a good movie, and I have absolutely no illusions that it was. But I was up, it was 1 a.m, I changed the channel, and this movie had just started, and it imprinted on me. And I love that because I didn't go and seek it out. I didn't open up an app on my Apple TV and flip through 400 things I know, or 700 streaming content created bullshit fucking shows that I'm not interested in. I just turned on the TV and changed the channel, and it was there. And that is not like exactly related to the CRT, but it is so embedded with the CRT in a certain time in my life. And when I think about watching movies in that time, like when I think about some movies that I love from my childhood, and maybe you have this experience also from the pre-plasma, pre-flat screen days, the movie, the medium, and the projection are like one and the same to me. And what do I mean about that? Like, well, we all have an 85-inch flat screen, except for you right now, of course.
Yeah,
but
except for
everyone
me.
has like this Dolby Atmos 7.1 crazy setup in their house. No, I like my analog scan lines on my 480 interlaced TV. But for me, if I think about the movie Empire Records, I only ever saw it pillar box. I only ever saw it 4:3 on a TV in a friend's living room, like, or in their den, like sitting on the floor looking up at this little box. It's the size of an iPad. And it's crazy that that's how families watched TV back in the day. Or that's how we watched movies. Like, you couldn't stream them. You could go to the video store and maybe rent something, but you would go and you would pick out a movie based on the box. And back to Discovery, the box that the movie was in was part of the experience. You would walk down the aisles on a Friday night and say, I want this one, or I want this one. And you wouldn't know anything about it other than they hired an interesting graphic designer or had a cool looking person on the cover.
Do you remember like what the first movie you ever saw was?
I have several memories of the first movies for different points in my life,
Yeah.
but I'm kind of withholding.
That's okay. You
Yeah.
can withhold. You can withhold.
Okay.
It's okay.
But I can tell you one of the first movies I remember from a video store was Hellraiser 2.
Oh, really?
because
Was it the box?
no, it was a cardboard cutout of Pinhead.
Oh,
There
of
was
course.
I was a little kid. I was about Chucky height, and
Oh, and with Chuck mentality too?
I had Chuck mentality, probably Child's Play 2 era. I can't remember, but I was walking through, and it was like also people who love to kind of like romanticize Blockbuster. Blockbuster was the bad guy. Blockbuster was like the Amazon at the time.
That's always like what my dad and Quentin say, but it's so funny because growing up in Ojai, we had a Blockbuster, but I'd never rented movies from there. I rented video games from Blockbuster, which like, I rented The Sims Herbs from Blockbuster.
I have the darkest story in history. I'll tell you off mic about renting a video game and a video game system. I did it exactly
and you've never
once.
played, and you've never played a video game.
No, I was with some friends who rented a video game system. I want to say it was a Super Nintendo and Mortal Kombat, and it was like the darkest weekend of my life.
Oh my god!
But yeah, like Blockbuster was the enemy. They were like they were like the Best Buy. They were the Amazon. They were like, you know, the big bad
The
guy who's
henchman,
coming in
the
to
evil.
yeah. They were the evil guy who was coming in to destroy all the little guys. And so I was at like an offbeat video store because every grocery store in the like late 80s, early 90s had a little section with like the worst like C-list movies, like not even good, like cool Jeffrey Combs movies. And you had to pick from them. And I was in this video store and they all smelled pretty mildewy and pretty funky because they had like bad carpet and they were like being in a theater that was never cleaned. And I would like turned a corner and looked up and saw Pinhead staring down at me. And I was like, damn. And that's actually a funny experience because the movie could never live up to that cardboard cutout. And it didn't.
I don't really like that movie so much.
No, that's so many of those movies. I love, you know, anything visual. Like I'm so enthralled and intrigued by like the box covers, the graphic design, like the packaging that goes into movies. Even like the title sequences are so great to me. And then you realize that like they kind of shot this in Browno-Vision, and it wasn't that interesting.
Browno-Vision?
Yeah, I think most of the 80s were shot in Browno-Vision. Like if you've ever seen like
Browno-Vision?
go watch The Big Chill. It's like everything is kind of muddy and murky and blah and beige.
Okay, so it's different than like 70s brown Technicolor, which is like
No, that's
brown.
like Shago-Vision.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the color of your couch we're sitting on.
Yeah, my beautiful couch.
Your burnt umber couch.
My orange couch.
Your ochre couch.
My ochre. It's definitely not ochre
No,
or ochre. Ochre.
cerulean.
Who knows how to pronounce anything? Definitely not me.
Engagement challenge. So yeah, like that the packaging is so interesting because that's how you sold a movie back in the day. And especially if it was a direct-to-video movie. And I loved that discovery the same way I loved whoever did the programming for TV One or whoever did the programming for whatever basic cable was on at the time. And that's something you don't have right now because we all have the entirety of the world's media at our fingertips. Like, kind of going back to the Sherpas from the previous episode. If somebody told you about the movie Cocksucker Blues, you had to do some fucking searching. Like, you probably wrote it down in a notebook, and 5 years later, maybe you came across it. Are you familiar with the movie or no?
Yeah, because it was at Video Archives, and it was like one of the special tapes that he had there. It was like his from the owner's like own personal collection.
Right. And that's it. It was like the under the counter special, like nobody gets this.
Yeah, I think you had to like leave like your ID or something like to get the
I'm
tape.
sure. So it's Robert Frank, who is an incredible photographer. He did The Americans, typology. Did this documentary with the Rolling Stones, and it was essentially kiboshed, and they tried to black hole it, memory hole it, and remove any remnant of it because it was never released, but a bootleg kind of got out. And you would hear about it and you'd hear this lore, and it was this amazing thing that you kind of, again, I hate the word gatekeeper, like you kind of had to look for it. And I'm not saying anyone should have a velvet rope or a gate around it, but you had to
work for it.
You had to work for it. And there was a reward if you went looking for it, and eventually, hopefully you saw it. And now it's something you can like pull up on YouTube.
Well, also though, it's weird because it's not only, it's like you have to work for it, but you also have to prepare yourself for it because like.
Well, the anticipation is part of it.
The anticipation is part of it, but also like maybe like I'm just gonna say the me who I am today, maybe I'm not ready to see Cocksucker Blues, but maybe when I've done like a little bit of groundwork in my cinema history and like worked to find the movie and maybe found movies that connected me to it, maybe then I'd be ready to see it and I'd understand it.
Well,
maybe it's like the right time to see it too.
Right. And it's like the Rolling Stones said. They said
say?
a lot of things, but
yeah, I was gonna
you
say.
can't always get what you want. You get what you need.
Yeah.
And that's such a perfect analogy for Cocksucker Blues. But that process is the process of you becoming your own Sherpa. You're becoming your own discovery because you start down the road looking for this thing. And, you know, back in the day, if you did research, you would go to the library and you'd flip open a book. You couldn't type a word into your search engine and automatically have a blob about it. In flipping through the pages, you saw completely unrelated and interesting things, and maybe that's what you were looking for, and you didn't even realize it. And that's a Michael Bublé song.
Well, that's why I love doing research on films and stuff, because as I'm doing my research, I'm just like finding other interesting things. And it's like, why I love magazines. Like,
It's like, it's the IRL equivalent of having like 473 tabs open on your web browser. But I'm a hoarder in some ways. I think I'm a collector, but I have
a collector for sure.
A collector.
We're going to say collector. If you have like 400 feet of like film in your freezer, you're a collector.
Well, I have an extensive collection of magazines from the 90s and 80s and some from the 70s. And so we all have Tumblr. And so we've all seen the same 4 Yves Klein paintings or the same 7 Keith Haring paintings or the same Barbara Kruger photograph of Times Square. And I love that, but there's this very shallow breadth of knowledge with no depth. And there are all these primary sources that you don't know about. Like if you go and you grab a 1986 copy of Penthouse magazine with a girl with roller skates on the cover, you're going to see an article about slam dancing in Los Angeles where they talk about going to Pink's Hot Dogs. And one of the kids they interview for this article is Mike Suicide from Suicidal Tendencies. And there's no fucking Google search that's going to lead you to that information. But I picked up a copy of Penthouse with a girl with roller skates on the cover because I wanted to read it for the articles. And
wink, wink.
It just so happened that there was this amazing article on that. And like right after that, there was probably one about Henry Kissinger. And it's so cool and interesting to find that. And we've kind of had a discussion offline about how the time in history shapes the way we talk about history. Mm-hmm. And so the language we use to talk about anything that happened in the past 100 years, 50 years, when we talk about movies in 2023, using our 2023 vocabulary for movies from the 70s and 80s, you can memory hole things, but having those pieces of primary material, like if you're a historian, all you care about is primary source material.
Oh, for sure.
Nothing matters except for the primary source.
It's also just really funny because like when I was growing up on the internet, you were taught like, don't believe everything you read on the internet. And now all of a sudden it's like, if it's not on the internet,
Only
it's not
believe
real.
exactly what you read on the
Only
internet.
believe what's on available.
Right.
Oh, I can look it up. It's in my pocket. Oh, I can't find what you're talking. I can't find that thing about Pink's Hot Dogs and suicidal tendencies.
I looked on
Oh,
Snopes and it's not there.
That doesn't exist. Stephen, what are you talking about? Oh my God, that doesn't exist.
And I love being able to prove people wrong.
Oh, do you?
That's my third favorite thing. But
what's your first and second?
Let's get into that later. But I do love having these things that don't exist online. And we've also talked about being an archivist in different ways and taking these things that fell through the digital gap. But yeah, that article probably doesn't exist. Like it never made it to the Gutenberg Project. It never made it to being scanned into some university archive. But I have the magazine on my shelf. And I have a copy of We magazine from 1981 with original David Hamilton photographs of Cher that have never made it onto Tumblr. And I'm sure someone is fucking dying to see them, but I love that there is that gap. I love that you've got to come to my little cave to see that magazine, or you have to go and find it at a flea market yourself. And that's so interesting to me. And then when you flip through, because you bought the magazine, because Cheryl Teague's on the cover, because Tawny Katane is on the cover, and then you see, oh wow, there's this really cool article about a Nakamichi tape deck, and now I'm going to start researching tape decks or typewriters or something.
Yeah.
That whole discovery is so interesting to me, And it doesn't exist in the digital world because you can hyper focus on the thing you want, open 7 tabs, and then you fall into the big trap of like the telephone game where there was actually kind of half of one piece of truth that 4 other people read and then they repeated on Reddit 4 times in different ways. And now you think you have a fact because 4 people repeated the same lie, as opposed to going and finding that copy of Fangora from 1986 or finding that copy of Detour magazine from 1999 where they interview Bijou Phillips and she talks about the experience she had on the set of Bully. And that story doesn't exist online. And maybe someone read that once and they kind of telephone gamed that into the IMDb trivia section, but you don't have the depth of knowledge from the discovery. So I am so fascinated by it. And back to, Bijou Phillips, like I remember reading a magazine when I was in high school about a movie called Tart. Have you seen Tart?
Mm-mm.
So Tart it's the whatever the Brat Pack of the 2000s was. Brad Renfro, Dominique Swain, Bijou Phillips, a young Misha Barton, and it's fantastic. And I read this article about Bijou Phillips being eaten out by a dog, which is crazy and weird.
Yeah.
I know. It was just talking about like interesting sex scenes or something. It was in indie film magazine. And you couldn't go to the video store and pull that movie off the shelf. You couldn't go to YouTube and look up the clip. It took me months and months and months to find the movie. And then I saw the movie, and of course it actually isn't that at all. It's like a 2-second thing in the beginning of the movie, but all that anticipation, it's like almost like reading a book or reading a script. Like I created the scene in my head so many times, and then I started finding these little breadcrumbs that led me to that movie. And the 7 movies aside from it, such as Bully, such as these other weird 2000s movies that I found looking for Tart, were the things I was actually looking for.
Wow, yeah. The other thing is also like you not only have these like in the magazines, but you also have all the information in your head. I find like retention of information is so much better when you actually read it versus just like on the internet or like look it up on your phone.
I'm very spatially like aware of information, which is so weird, but when I'm telling you about this, like I can tell you about the March 1999 issue of Detour magazine called The West is Best with Dennis Rodman on the cover and an article with Bijou Phillips inside, and I can see the typography.
Wow.
Like I can see the text because of the way it's laid out, but that's just how
that's just how your brain works.
I have brainworms in a different way than most people, but
better brainworms. I wish I had these brainworms. Can you give me some?
But if I write something down in a notebook, like I keep my Moleskine with me because the way that I write it down, if I write it sideways or in all caps, or if I write it down in a certain like arc to the letters, I'll remember it because of the shape of the word, which is almost synesthesia.
No, it actually is synesthesia. So do you have synesthesia?
I kind of do.
What kind of synesthesia? Because I have synesthesia.
I just can't not think of rules of attraction when I think of synesthesia.
Really?
I associate every sense with the other senses. So what I don't have is perfect pitch. And so people with perfect pitch talk about they'll hear a C sharp or like they'll hear F and it is a color to them, like a color bar.
Yeah.
But for me, like smells have these very particular shapes to them and very particular memories, and sounds can do the same thing.
Yeah, because I have sound to smell. So like there are
Right.
certain sounds that like trigger intense
Smell like blueberry muffins?
No, it's not that. There are like very specific ones, and I can't tell people what they are because I once told someone and they started slipping the words into conversations, and I was like, "Don't do this to me right now."
That's why I told you I'm withholding.
Yeah,
That's why
it's
I'm
okay to
withholding.
withhold.
Yeah.
That's why there's some things that should be kept private.
I'm not getting my Cocoa Puffs.
Yeah, exactly. Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Okay, now you made me think about Reese's Puffs, peanut butter chocolate flavor,
Generational divide.
peanut butter jelly time.
That one I know.
I love that. I
I'm
remember.
at the Pizza Hut. I'm at the Taco Bell.
I don't know that one.
I'm at the combination Pizza Hut and Taco Bell.
Oh my god, we're so old.
I know.
The thing is, though, it's funny because like we were talking about like how people can just pull things up on their phone and then they're like, oh, this doesn't really exist. Quentin was telling me that like he'll say something and he spent his entire life learning these facts, and I am so grateful for him like kind of passing down, and my dad like passing down like, here's how you learn. Like you'd write it down in a moleskin.
Apprenticeship, yeah.
Apprenticeship. But apparently now, like, he'll say something, now it's like some like young person will like get on their phone and like fact check him right then and there. And it's like, okay, for one, if Quentin's like a little
Don't
bit
fucking fact check Quentin Tarantino.
yeah, don't do that. That's
bitch.
You're being a jerk. But like for one, like if he's like wrong like, by like a year, like he's still more right than you were. And then two,
Because that's something he knows, and that's something you looked up.
yeah, and then two, the person that looked it up, like they don't know it.
That's
And
what I'm
then-
saying. It's like, yeah, all you could do is look up something that this person knows in his heart.
Yeah, and it's so much better to like learn it and then have a conversation like, no, this person's in this movie. I've had conversations before where I'm like, no, it was this year, no, it was that year, and someone tries to pull out their phone. I'm like, no, don't pull out your
I
phone. Like,
refuse-
let's figure it out.
I don't let people around me pull out their phones. Like, I am like, give us 3 hours. Let's talk about 17 other things, because I'll remember the name of that guy by the end of the night. But yeah, I could reach into my pocket and find it out in 4 seconds. I could ask Siri. I ain't going to do it because, one, I like to keep my brain sharp. Like, I don't use GPS for the same reason.
Oh,
Like,
really?
I refuse to use.
Did you find it easy to
Yes,
find your way here today?
I found my way very easily because I knew the general address. I knew which freeway I was going to get off on.
Yeah.
And I looked at the 2 turns from
the map
from
before
the
you
point.
left.
Yeah, like I had a landmark in my mind, but I only had that landmark in my mind because I've driven well over 200,000 miles around Los Angeles. Like,
Wow.
I can tell you the dead ends in Silver Lake to Long Beach to Culver City to the Hollywood Hills. Like, I don't know why I do that. It's not like a source of pride for me, but it is, again, it's how my brain is shaped, and it's the way I see the world, because I want to discover, I want to turn down the wrong street and see a weird house, because I don't want to be led by the nose by my GPS. But the same way, I don't want to be led by my nose about what movie came out in this exact year starring this exact person. And I get into fights all the time with people. We were talking about the pronunciation of something earlier.
Yeah.
And who really gives a shit if it's pronounced Yasika or Yoshika or whatever? You know, who cares if that movie came out in 1965 or 66? The general idea is there, and it's such a buzzkill when someone like needs to correct the overall idea for this tiny little tidbit that is completely fucking useless.
And on top of that, though, it's so interesting because the internet is also always wrong. Because Letterboxd was saying that The One-Armed Executioner, this movie that we covered on Video Archives, came out in 1983. And then I contacted the son of the director because I wanted information about the movie. And he's like, oh, and just so you know, the movie actually came out in 1981. And that's information that's like on the video box and all that stuff. And so I went on the open movie database to go update the information. And someone had put in like an incorrect year. And it's just
The
like,
release dates are like often wrong. And I had an argument with a friend because there's a movie, and it's too bad to even mention it, but it came out in 1998. And
what movie?
I'll tell you later. It's just a stupid movie, but it came out in 98. And I was like, I know it came out in 98 because I saw it in a theater in 1998.
Yeah.
And look at this person in it, look at the star in it. This person is clearly a teenager. And my friend was like, no, dude, look, it says on IMDb, it says on Letterboxd, it came out in 2015. And I was like, it's not even fucking close.
Wait, the 98 and 2015. It's not
Well,
even like 98 and 99. It's like 98
No,
and 2015.
I'll tell you exactly what happened. The DVD release was in 2015,
Oh.
and I guess it never got a full theatrical release, even though I saw maybe a screening of it.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where the entire internet was telling us that this was the date, and if we were to ask AI or ask fucking Google, it's going to tell us something that we know in our hearts is wrong. But going back to that movie Tart, I liked the movie, and it came out in 2001, but it was released in different countries in 2002.
that's what
And
happened, but
Sometimes a movie will be released for screening in 2000, and so which is the true year? It doesn't fucking matter, because also if you're the person who's going to whip out your phone in the middle of the conversation with Quentin Tarantino, like, buzz off. But also, if you're doing that, you're not listening.
No, you're not. And
you're not
also, you're
paying
trying to
attention.
one up people.
Right.
And it's not even like I know more than you. It's like I can like look stuff up faster than you can recall your information.
Well, this is something we also talked about offline, which is rather than you being interesting or exceptional, you're going to stand out by being the person that proves someone else wrong.
Yeah, that's not cool.
That's so dark.
That's not chill. That's not super special awesome sauce or funky fresh. That's the look that he's giving me right now.
Dying for this buzzer to go off.
He's like, can I go now?
No.
Can I be released?
No, we've talked so little about the CRT TV. We could talk more about Empire Records, and we could talk more about Steve Harwell and Can't Hardly Wait. But I think that having different experiences with different movies, if it's in a theater versus a flat screen versus a CRT TV versus, you know, your iPhone sitting next to David Lynch on an airplane or whatever, are all part of the experience. And it's kind of like a synesthesia, but it's different. Like, I can remember the room that I was in the first time I saw Kids. I remember the people I was with. I remember how I was sitting. I remember the first time I saw Jaws, because I saw Jaws at a thing called a dive-in movie at a water park in New Mexico.
You saw Jaws at a water park?
Yes.
Did they like release like red food coloring into the water?
They probably should have, but I had never seen it because you didn't just go and watch movies the way we can now back then. And the water park had like almost like Cinespia here in LA. They had a dive-in movie thing where they'd project movies while you're in the wave pool, and I didn't have inner tube, so I was just treading water for whatever that is,
like the 2 hours that Jaws
for the 2
is.
hours of
That's
Jaws,
like a nightmare.
As I watched it, and I'm the only person in the water. Everyone else is in their inner tube, but that experience.
Wait, why didn't you have an inner tube?
Because I'm a weirdo.
Oh, okay.
Because I like to do things the hard way.
I'll accept that.
You know that. About
I
me
know
already.
that. Okay. I don't even know why I asked.
But now I have this imprinted experience, and that movie will forever be linked to that experience. And me watching Empire Records, when I watched the 4K HDR remaster on my 85-inch OLED TV at home, the resolution is greater, but the experience is lesser.
Yeah, it's funny actually with Jaws. Like it wasn't the first time I saw it, but I have like a very specific time when I saw that the 3D re-release. I saw it with my ex-boyfriend in Dallas at like a midnight show the moment my grandma died. So it's like this really oddly specific like moment and space that I will never be in ever again. And Jaws 3D. Not the movie Jaws 3D. Jaws in 3D.
Right.
Was like that movie.
So let's just take that onto a tangent. I have a very similar and different experience, which was my grandma moved in with us when she was elderly because she was pretty sick in New Mexico, whatever. And she got really sick one night and started to die. And I was the one who found her dying. And we took her to the hospital and blah, 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 missing scene. And I sat in the hospital with my mom and my grandma. She died, and my mom and I were sitting in the room, and we didn't know what to do. So my mom said, let's go see a movie, which we didn't do. Like, my mom liked movies. We had different ideas of movies, but that wasn't like an experience, and definitely not like what you have with your dad. And we just went to the theater and walked in to see Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion.
Wow.
And forever, I will remember my grandma dying, walking out of the hospital, going down the street and watching Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion, and Janine Garofalo burst in their bubble about creating Post-it notes.
See, that's why like the experience of watching a movie is so important, because it really does take you back. I'll never not think about Jaws like in that sense now.
And we're not talking about sitting on our phones looking up when Jaws was created or who the mayor, what other movie he was in 1981 or any of that shit, because the moment was so integral.
Yeah, the moment is integral. To be honest, I can't even tell you the first thing about Jaws.
I know, I could care less. It's fine.
I can tell you that the lead guy, I can't remember his name, the lead guy is in Sorcerer.
I can tell you that John Milius is a great writer, and he wrote that monologue.
Oh yeah, he is a great. I love John.
Yeah,
he's
a
really
mensch.
Yeah, no, he is a mensch.
Yeah, I am looking at a videotape on your table that says Red Deal.
Raw Deal.
Sorry, I'm not wearing glasses.
Yeah.
When I walked in, I thought it said Red Dawn, which is such a banger.
And I haven't seen it.
You have to see. I mean, the new one doesn't even exist to me, but the original.
I didn't even know there was a new one.
Yeah, there was a 2012 one that they had to completely reshoot and recut because the bad guys in it were China.
Oh.
And
what a good way to end. China.
Yeah, the bad guys in Red Dawn were China, but because that was an emerging market in 2012, they had to go in with CGI and reshoot it to make it North Korea, which is hilarious.
Oh my God.
But the original Red Dawn is baby Patrick Swayze, baby Powers Booth,
Oh, I love Powers Booth.
and most
Oh my God.
importantly, baby Jennifer Grey.
No. Most importantly is Powers Booth. I'm in love with Powers Booth.
Okay.
But
well,
we-
that
the
takes us
times-
back
yeah.
to Milius, full circle to Deadwood.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Well, that's all that we have for today. But is there any final thought that you'd like to share with everyone?
I want to invite everyone to go out and see a movie with someone you love under the weirdest circumstances, because it's going to be an experience that you cherish.
I'm going to add to that. Go in and don't even read anything about the movie. Just
Never watch
walk
the
in.
trailer. Never read the fucking letterbox. Never read those reviews.
No, just literally just pick someone that you love, go to a theater, see what's the first movie playing, and go see it. Why not? What do you have to lose? I guess your time, except you're going to spend some time with someone you love.
You're still going to gain something from it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much to Steven, aka Toastycakes. Steven's going to hate that I'm about to do this, but you can find Toastycakes and his photography on Instagram at Toastycakes, on Twitter at NotBrodyJenner, or on his website, StevenMeiers.com. That's StevenMeiers.com. I'm Gala Avery, and this has been The Gala Show.
Goodbye.
The Gala Show is brought to you by Avery.com. This episode was executive produced by Roger Avery and produced by Gala Avery. Music composed by Andy Milburn. As always, I'm your host, Gala Avery. Copyright 2024, all rights reserved. Despite me sharing the same last name with this charity, I don't have any affiliation with it, besides the fact that the issue is very near and dear to my heart. Did you know that in the United States, 2.7 million children currently have a parent in prison, and it's estimated that 10 million children have experienced parental incarceration at some point in their lives? I was one of these kids, and as an adult, I am really grateful to be able to give back to Project Avery. Their mission is to build leadership from within by supporting community through programs such as mentoring and outdoor education, and also to remove the stigma surrounding having a parent that's incarcerated. You don't have to feel alone. If you know a kid who could use these resources or would like to donate money or time to the charity, please go to Project Avery, that's AVARY.org, to check out what this amazing charity is all about. Again, that's projectavery.org. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart.